My name is Katie. Welcome to my channel. Now for my first review, which I'm super excited about, I have a pair of Hoka Rocket 3s. So I purchased these. This is not provided by Hoka or anybody else. I paid for these with my own money. Not sure if I'm supposed to give that disclaimer, but I wanted to give it just to cover my bases. So the Rocket 3s I purchased because I'm getting ready to do another half marathon here up in November. So I'm looking for something that is going to be good for race day, but also for some of my longer runs, especially towards that race pace. The Rocket 3 came across my purview and I thought this would be a good fit. I have tried several different pairs of Hokas before. I recently ran in the Hoka Mach 6 for one of my my training shoes. So I use the Mach 6 for a lot of my tempo runs, anything between that like 3 to 6 mile range was kind of what I would use the Mach 6s mostly for. So previous to that, years ago, I had ran in the Cliftons. That was a little bit too much shoe for me, honestly. Didn't really have the bounce and the propulsion that I was looking for in a shoe. And it definitely was good for some of those easier miles. I'm going to unbox these live here, and then I will be testing them in a little bit and going to talk to you straight off the run what my initial thoughts are, would I recommend, would I not recommend, and maybe what types of runs they would be good for. Here are the Rocket 3s. So I will say, I personally love this color. I have seen a lot of people not so happy with this color and thinking it is not the most exciting kind of colorway for a running shoe, but I'm a neutral girly and the grays, blacks, whites, blues, very pretty to me. I think it's a very simple shoe. Yes, it's not super spicy for a race day shoe, but I don't really care. I'm kind of in it for more so the functionality. Bonus if it looks cool. Now this does come in 2 colorways. This is the original colorway that came out relatively recently, but there's a newer one. I think it's kind of, I don't remember the color name, but it's like yellows, greenish yellow and pink. Kind of a cool running shoe combo as well, a little bit more exciting. So they listened to the people and provided another colorway here. For a women's size 8, it is 6.5 ounces, but then a men's size 10 is 8 ounces. So a pretty lightweight running shoe. I am a big fan of lightweight running shoes personally, whether or not, honestly, it's tempo, race day, or my slow, easy miles. I just prefer something a little bit lighter on my feet. I feel like it just kind of helps me get moving versus kind of like weighing me down. So this feels really good in terms of the weight of the shoe overall. This is a unisex racing shoe. Again, it's best for road racing is what it's meant for. Unisex. So this one, I have a size 7. That is my true size. My last half marathon that I did this past July in San Francisco, I ran in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4s. Now that has been one of my favorite shoes for the past couple years. Now this is a carbon plated shoe, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But the Saucony Speed 4s, those are nylon plated, so a little bit less of an aggressive plate. I really liked those the past couple years running in those, and then I tried the 5 just because the 5 just came out. I wanted to see if the 5 was a step up and having some improvements, and I found that the 5 was a little bit dull for me. The 4 was very peppy. I felt like I could turn over very quickly, and I felt like I could put in a lot of miles at a very good pace. For me, to use that, it's obviously very subjective, so very good pace for myself. But the 4s, I started to find that they were feeling a little bit firm, a little too firm for me, and I was starting to notice it, having some feet pain, a little bit through some of my joints as well, and I kind of was in the market for something that had some of that same performance, a little bit of that quicker turnover, obviously looking for something plated to kind of meet some of those needs as well, and just a little bit of a better foam composition was top of mind for me too, because I wanted to absorb some of that impact to hopefully take off some of that strain on my feet. So this is kind of where I landed because it seemed to me not too far off from the Speed 4s, but again, it's more of a super shoe. So we do have that plated, carbon plated component here. And the carbon plate also doesn't just have like your traditional carbon plate. It is winged as well through the mid to upper foot here. So that is something that they added. I believe it did not exist in the Rocket 2. I could be incorrect there. I did not try the Rocket 2. So this is my first Rocket iteration I'm trying. So the winged plate was added for a little bit more stability. I don't have huge stability concerns, but for me personally, when you're racing, especially at that, that faster pace, I think a little bit of added stability is a benefit for probably most runners. Nothing to take away from like your overall performance, but something that's just going to keep you from doing anything a little bit wonky with your ankles that obviously is going to impact other things like your knees, hips, so on and so forth. So I think this is going to be a cool added feature, and I'm curious to see if it's enough for me to notice a difference. Now I have run in carbon plated shoes before, but not for races. So just that caveat there. In addition to the carbon plate, this is a midsole dual density PIBA foam. So obviously PIBA is a very well-known foam. A lot of shoes are incorporating PIBA foams nowadays. So there's gonna be I'm thinking a lot more bounce here. Something else about the shoe is they did change the upper. So now the upper is a mesh upper, as you can see here. I'm gonna try and get a little closer. The lighting's not great, apologies about that. So this is a lightweight mesh upper. So this is going to be great for breathability. From just initial glance, it does look very, very breathable and it feels nice. It's very soft, very flexible. So I think it's gonna mold to my foot very well, giving you kind of that sock-like feeling that you would like in a racing shoe. Another change that they made that I want to call out is the heel collar here. So the heel collar has been updated a little bit so that it is reducing that chance of blisters, which is huge for me. I tried recently the New Balance Rebel 4s, and I had a big issue with those with the heel collar. The heel collar caused so many blisters with me out of my first run within 3 miles. I loved the shoe. I thought it performed well. I liked for not being a plated shoe, I felt like it'd be a great tempo run shoe, but the heel collar was a no-no for me. So I unfortunately did not keep those in my rotation. So very exciting to hear a heel collar was developed so that it's going to reduce the amount of blisters because no one wants to be running 13.1 or more miles with blisters. The price point here. Now this is right in line with a lot of super shoes. This is at $250 US. So it is on the higher end. Obviously not quite as high as some of those very elite super shoes, but for what it is, without running in it yet, I would say that based on the overall composition of the shoe and the features that it has, I would say it's probably on par price-wise with its competitors. Now, again, I'll report back and see if it's worth it, but again, $250, bit of a steeper price point. For me, I'm also not looking for just something to race in. Ideally, I will be able to use a race shoe for some of those longer runs as well. And plus I like to break in a shoe to some extent beforehand. Don't like to just take fresh out of the box and run in any circumstance. It's just not for me. As you can see here, it's not that aggressive of a rocker. They do have a 4-foot rocker added, but it is not an overly aggressive rocker based shoe. There is a shoe that just came out by Asics. It's, I believe, the Sonic Blast. It's part of the Blast series. So I'm gonna get my hands on those soon and hopefully test those out as well. But that one, from initial glance without having it in hand, it seems like it had a little bit more of an intense rocker. Now that's not a carbon plated shoe. That's another, I believe, maybe nylon plated shoe or plastic of some sort. I'll report back when I have those. But that has a bit of a more aggressive rocker from what I've seen visibly. Now this does not. I think that this has like a probably pretty average rocker from, again, my opinion and perspective just looking at it. We'll see how it feels on foot and when we start picking up the pace. So when I like to try my shoes, I really like to take them, even though it may be more of my tempo to race pace overall is what I'm going for with these, but I'm going to take them through all the different speeds. So warm up, cool down, tempo, race, everything in between, because I think it is really important to see how it functions at all of those different levels. Then I can speak to how people could use them. Another feature that they did add to this, that they added an active foot frame kind of right through this middle part here. So think of this, this may not be the best comparison, but if you're familiar with Brooks shoes, their guardrail system, but now that's more so a foam stability system that is added in. This is kind of a similar concept. It's just not foam specific. So essentially it is a little bit more of that midsole deep added material that is supposed to help with stability again. Not a ton, and like I said before, I think that having some stability help, it is not considered a stability shoe. It's a very neutral shoe. So I'm just gonna preface by saying that, but it does have those added stability components that I do think are helpful, especially when you're picking up that pace. Another shoe that I tried that I felt was an excellent shoe, but lacked a little bit of stability, so that's why I'm hoping this is a good transition, is the New Balance Super Comp Elite. So the New Balance Super Comp Elite 5, I should specify by saying that, because obviously every version has its differences. The 5, I felt like was an incredible shoe. I felt it was lightweight, it fit so nicely, it had insanely comfortable foam. I felt like the propulsion was there, the bounce was there, but then also I didn't feel like I was sinking into the shoe. I hate that feeling so much. The issue with that Super Comp shoe was that it was so thin here, like very, very thin, not wide at all. I bought my true to size, it fit me well, but once I got over 3 miles, I was picking up to race pace, I noticed that my knees were killing me. That tells me that I was having some stability issues as I was picking up that pace that was causing other joints to hurt. Would I be curious to try a wide, maybe half size up? I'm not sure if that would alleviate that, But something to note with shoes is having a little bit of added stability, I don't think is make or break for people. I think it has a benefit for a lot of people. So another feature I like about this shoe is that they have the toothed, like serrated lace material. So let me try and show this up close. So this really helps kind of keep that lacing positioning tight and locked down so there isn't any slippage and you don't have those issues of potentially coming untied as well. The drop in the shoe is a 7mm drop. I typically stick between like a 6 and an 8mm drop in most of my shoes, so this is kind of that sweet spot right in the middle. Before I get into my actual run, I wanted to say just a few stats about me, some things in terms of my running pace, and also talk about my body composition stats too, because I think all of those things are helpful to just understanding so that you know how this works for someone of my stature. I am 5'5", I'm about 118 pounds. I am a mid-foot striker primarily. I sometimes kind of lean into forefoot, but definitely not heel striker. You know, sometimes that last mile of a half marathon, maybe a little bit of heel striking action happening. Running stats. So I run for my race pace is around a 7:40 minute mile. And then my kind of, again, I do a lot of my easier runs somewhere between like 7:50 and 8:15. That's kind of my sweet spot there for just my daily miles. Without further ado, let's go ahead and test these out, take these for a spin, and I'll report back soon. Okay, I'm back fresh off the run. So I ended up doing a 5-mile run. I feel like 3 miles sometimes is not quite enough time to really understand how the shoe performs, especially at the different paces. 5 is a good mileage to kind of really get a good feel of how these will perform at some of those longer distances. Without further ado, let's chat about it. So this shoe, I definitely was pretty right with the rocker, in my opinion. I didn't feel like it was an aggressive rocker by any means, which I prefer because I think that that's kind of why it actually leads itself to maybe being more of that entry level super shoe. I know that's what it's been kind of dubbed by a lot of people, but that's super subjective. But I think that it is one that if you're looking to get into the super shoe world and you want something plated, you want something that has good pickup and good return, but isn't overly aggressive to the point of like really needing to rip it. I think this is a really good fit for that. This shoe really started to thrive when I would increase my pace from that like 8 minutes to about that 7:30 mark. Really was thriving, coming to life in that range there. So I spent most of my 5 miles in that range. The fastest I went today was a 7:30 pace, and that was for about a mile. The slowest I went was 8:30. Definitely noticed that it performed well at all those paces, but in my opinion, again, I do feel that it did better in those faster ranges. So it definitely wanted to go fast. I noticed that as I started to pick up, I felt like it kept propelling me forward. But again, not necessarily due to anything with the rocker. I think there was just a really good propulsion. Just some between the foam and the plate kind of mechanics, I feel that those were the main key points here that really helped this kind of take off. Great shoe overall. I felt like the fit was very true to size, and I didn't feel that this was too big or too tight. I did notice right when I put it on, maybe was going to have some issues with the outer part of the upper. I have pretty narrow feet overall, but I did feel like my pinky toe and outer side of my foot was gently rubbing against this, so I was a little nervous that was going to start to become an issue. But as I got moving, I did notice that it definitely broke in pretty quickly. So I felt like the upper is very, very flexible. So I don't think you're gonna have any issues in terms of any compression if you're dealing with any bunion issues or just overall concerns with having too much snugness and maybe worrying about your toes, your toenails. I know a lot of runners, myself included, have had shoes in the past where we have had issues with toenails from too tight of shoes. Very, very breathable. I am a huge fan of this. I didn't feel uncomfortable at all. I wear pretty thin socks. I typically wear feature socks. The stability overall in these was great. I didn't, again, as I said, it is not a stability shoe, but those little added components like I talked about earlier with just the design of having some of this foundation be a little bit raised. Again, that minor lateral wing plate component towards the upper part of the shoe, I didn't necessarily feel it. Like it didn't feel like an added level of firmness, but I did notice just overall the shoe felt, for it being a faster shoe, it felt stable. I didn't feel like I was having any issues with my knees, my ankles. I tend to pronate a little bit. So I do keep that again in the back of my mind to make sure that I'm not having something that just, especially if you pick up speed, it's just going to be kind of all over the place with your foot striking. So loves that. I didn't cover this earlier, but the bottom of the shoe, the foundation here, it's really good for the grippage. I didn't have any issues with it sticking or not sticking. I feel like this shoe overall has a pretty solid base. I'm gonna go ahead and rank this based on comfort, quality, performance, and price point. Again, subjective based on my opinions from running in these. For comfort, I would rank these as like a 7.8. I did feel like this was a more comfortable shoe overall. Of course, I don't think you're not comparing this really to like a Super Blast or something that has a lot more cushion naturally built in. That yes, it's going to have that good bounce, that good propulsion, but it's definitely going to be something you could take out for miles and miles and miles and not have any issues with your feet hurting. So this, I will say, the first mile or so maybe had some minor discomfort with the balls of my feet. I do think that is something that is very, very common with plated shoes in general, especially when you wear them for the first time. But the more you break them in, the less of a concern it is. But after I got over that first mile or so, I felt like they were smooth sailing overall. They are a little bit on the firmer side. They are not as firm as the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4 that I spoke of earlier on in the video. That was kind of my go-to fast shoe, which I would use for the past couple half marathons. So they're definitely more comfortable than those, which is perfect and aligned with what I am looking for in a shoe for those faster runs and race day. Quality, I would give this an 8.5. Overall, I think that the Pipa foam is excellent. I really enjoyed that. The plate, again, it wasn't too stiff. It was very fluid. I didn't feel like it was that noticeable, but it did its part, helped me kind of pick up the pace very seamlessly without realizing it. This is my first experience with a mesh upper. I don't typically go towards this type of shoe upper, but I really enjoyed it. It's very flexible, it's breathable, it's great. So, and the heel was amazing too. As I said earlier, it's definitely got that stability built in, but it has enough cushion where you're not gonna get warm, but you're gonna have enough support so you're not having that rubbing and blister issue that a lot of people deal with. Performance, I would give these an 8. I feel like this was really in alignment with what I was looking for in a shoe. So again, my goal was to have something that is for tempo to race pace. And I felt like this did a great job performing at those paces. And again, it wanted to go fast, but I didn't feel like I was lacking in stability, which is perfect. And it wasn't as stiff, in my opinion, as my previous running shoes that I used. So I feel like we had a lot of comfort there built in, but it definitely can go. It can go fast. Rocket, being its namesake, I think that is very in alignment with how it performs. I don't think that people would want to use this shoe if they wanted easy miles. I think this is definitely a shoe where if you're picking up the pace, it'll be a good fit for you. Price point, I will give this a 7. I do feel that this is, $250 steep, and I know that is pretty comparable to a lot of other super shoes in the market. However, I don't feel like it's the same type of super shoe. Again, I do agree with a lot of people saying that it is more of that entry level type of super shoe, and that there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like that could be mistaken as a negative thing, but it's really not. It's more or less that it is something where if you're looking to break into that style of shoe, that type of shoe, that having it for longer distances and performance, whatever it may be, it is a great kind of toe dip, if you will, into that world. And I think that that's why I really do like this. And I think this will be great for future half marathons and whatnot. I think it would probably do better maybe in alignment with like Super Blast. Again, those are two totally different shoes, but based on the use case, I think $200, $225 is probably a more accurate price point for these, in my opinion. For those of you who know me, know that my walkout song, everyone has their walkout song. My walkout song is Thunderstruck. So therefore, my running performance song is Thunderstruck. Thunderstruck finds its way in every playlist. It is my hype song, just love it, and it's never let me down. That being said, are these a Thunderstruck worthy shoe? And the answer for me is yes. I do feel that these are, that was actually the first song that I played on my run today. So I took off of them, and I do feel that these fit the bill for everything that I am looking for. So this was a successful first shoe tube, if you will, shoe tube rating of the Hoka Rocket 3s, and bonus for those people who are hating on this colorway, which I love. It matches the old Lions colors, so how can it be bad? right? Go Lions. All right. Have a great day, everyone.